Hamas ready to abide ceasefire if Israel does the same. Uncertainty hangs over Russia's account of plane crash. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm SAHIH and you're watching World Today. Palestinian group Hamas said yesterday it would abide by a ceasefire in its war with Israel in Gaza if the UN Stop Court ordered one and Israel did the same. The International Court of Justice is due to hand down its landmark ruling today in a case brought by South Africa against Israel over alleged genocide in Gaza. In a statement, Hamas said they will abide by the ICJ ruling for a ceasefire as long as the Israeli occupational forces does the same. South Africa has alleged that Israel stands in breach of the United Nations Genocide Convention signed in 1948 as the world's response to the Holocaust. Pretoria wants the ICJ to issue so-called provisional measures, emergency orders to protect Palestinians in Gaza from potential breaches of the convention. Orders from the ICJ, which rules in disputes between countries, are legally binding and cannot be appealed. However, the court has little power to enforce its verdicts. For example, it ordered Russia to stop its invasion of Ukraine 1 month after it began to no avail. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has already hinted he would not feel bound by any ICJ order, saying no one will stop them. The United Nations revealed that the Israeli military ordered people taking refuge in their shelter hit with a deadly tank fire in southern Gaza's Khan Yunis to leave by this afternoon. A spokeswoman for UNRWA, the Agency for Palestinian Refugees, confirmed testimony from displaced people in the shelter who said the army gave them until 1500 GMT today to flee. As fighting intensifies in Khan Yunis, the Israeli military has taken to social media to publish evacuation orders covering swathes of the city where internet connectivity is limited. UNRWA said 13 people were killed and 56 others injured, 21 of them critically when 2 tank shells struck the shelter where thousands had taken refuge. The majority of Gaza's population, 1.7 million out of 2.4 million, have been forced from their homes, with vast numbers cramming into UN shelters. UNRWA Chief Felipe Lazzarini said Wednesday bombardment was a blatant disregard of basic rules of war. The United States also condemned the bombardment, with State Department spokesman Vedant Patel saying civilians must be protected and the protected nature of UN facilities must be respected. Questions remain over the military plane crash that Russia said had killed dozens of captured Ukrainian soldiers ahead of a planned prisoner exchange. The Russian Defense and Foreign Ministries blamed Ukrainian forces for downing the Il-76 transport plane over the southern Belgorod region on Wednesday. They said 65 captured Ukrainian soldiers had been on board, as well as their escorts and the crew. Videos on social media showed a large plane in the region plummeting from the sky on its side before crashing in a fireball in what the Kremlin called a monstrous act. On Thursday, Ukraine's SBU Security Service announced it had opened a criminal probe into the downing, specifically into violations of the laws and customs of war. Russia's investigative committee, which probes major crimes, later said it had opened a terrorism probe into the crash, saying the plane was downed by a missile from the territory of Ukraine. It said fragmented remains of people were found, as well as the flight recorders of the aircraft, which were sent for decoding. Ukraine's Right Ombudsman Dmytro Lubinets called for the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, to be allowed to inspect the crash site. The ICRC did not respond to Kiev's request, but it described the reports of the crash as worrisome. The foreign ministers of Guyana and Venezuela met Thursday in Brazil's capital city to discuss the simmering crisis on their border of a disputed oil-rich region. The region is home to 125,000 of Guyana's 800,000 citizens, but Caracas has long claimed the region should be under its control.
Venezuela has over the validity.
Guyanese Foreign Minister Hugh Hilton Todd and Venezuelan counterpart Van Gil met in Brasilia for the first high-level talks on the disputed Essequibo region since their respective presidents held a crisis summit in St. Vincent and the Grenadines last month. Neither diplomat made statements as they arrived at Brazil's foreign ministry headquarters for the meeting, which was also attended by their Brazilian counterpart Mauro Vieira. With both sides holding firm, observers do not expect a major breakthrough on Venezuela claim to Essequibo, which makes up about two-thirds of Guyanese territory. The crisis had triggered international concern over a potential military conflict in relatively peaceful South America, though Presidents Irfan Ali and Nicolas Maduro agreed at their meeting on 14 December not to resort to force. Essequibo has been administered by Guyana for more than a century and is the subject of border litigation before the International Court of Justice ICJ in The Hague, whose jurisdiction in the matter Venezuela rejects. More than 70 people have been killed after a tunnel collapsed at a Malian gold mining site last week, the latest disaster in a region prone to mining accidents. According to local authorities, out of 200 gold miners reported in the field, 73 were declared dead. Mali, which is among the world's poorest countries, is one of Africa's leading gold producers. Gold mining sites are regularly the scene of deadly landslides, and authorities struggle to control artisanal mining of the precious metal. Mali's Ministry of Mines, in a statement on Tuesday, had announced the death of several miners but did not give precise figures. The government offered its deepest condolences to the grieving families and to the Malian people. It also called on communities living near mining sites and gold miners to scrupulously respect safety requirements and to work only within the perimeters dedicated to gold panning. Mali's mining sector is dominated by foreign groups, including Canada's Barrick Gold and B2 Gold, Australia's Resolute Mining, and Britain's Hummingbird Resources, which continue to operate despite the political instability that has plagued the country for years. But artisanal mines also continue to flourish and attract thousands of gold miners. Colombia has declared a state of emergency in 2 regions as dozens of forest fires burned wide swathes of the country and left the capital choking on smoke during record temperatures linked with the El Nino weather phenomenon. Colombia has already extinguished hundreds of fires this month, but 25 continue to burn, according to data from the National Disaster Risk Management Unit, UNGRD, on Wednesday. In the departments of Santander and Cundinamarca, where the capital Bogota is located, the fires have consumed about 600 hectares of forest and states of emergency were declared. Cundinamarca Governor Jorge Emilio Reyes said the emergency measures free up funds to quickly address the negative impact on the department's natural resources. More than half of the country's municipalities have been put on red alert over the threat of the fires, with the areas around the capital hit hard. White columns of smoke billowed from the mountains surrounding Bogota on Wednesday, with people in the commercial district seen masking up against the thick haze and ash. President Gustavo Petro said global warming was aggravating the El Nino weather, a phenomenon typically associated with the increased temperatures worldwide, drought in some parts of the world, and heavy rains elsewhere. 9 towns in the north, center, and east of Colombia posted record temperatures Tuesday of up to 40.4 degrees Celsius. Coming up, farmers block roads and demonstrate against fuel tax raise.
Kita perkenalkan sistem padu pangkalan data utama. Pertama, ia selaras dengan pendekatan dan dasar transformasi digital. Kedua, menjamin supaya manfaat dan kemudahan itu dinikmati oleh orang yang berhak menerimanya. Dan tentunya dengan cara yang sedemikian, mengurangkan kos, mengurangkan ketirisan. Dan kaedah diperkenalkan melalui padu ini ialah secara tidak langsung memaksa setiap warga negara faham tentang transformasi digital dan menggunakan sistem padu. Dengan sendirinya kita ada pencerahan kecelekan budaya dan kecelekan digital.
The United States cannot go back to an earlier era, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in a speech Thursday, lauding the economic gains under President Joe Biden as he seeks re-election in November. Yellen comments come just days after the Republican ex-president won in the New Hampshire primary, making a 2024 rematch with Biden almost certain. As the campaign heats up, Biden's top economic officials have been emphasizing the benefits of his agenda, notably investments from the Bipartisan Infrastructure, Law and Inflation Reduction Act. While Biden has struggled to win over Americans on his handling of the economy, Yellen stressed in Chicago that authorities have managed to defy recession predictions last year. With rising wages, low unemployment and a robust labor market, Yellen argued that middle-class Americans now have more purchasing power. She conceded, however, that work is far from done, with prices of key goods still too high. Biden's top economic advisor, Lael Brainard, who heads the National Economic Council, also made a case on Monday for place-based policies in Biden's economic approach. She laid out a strategy of investing in left-behind communities and encouraging business involvement in neglected areas to revitalize the economy. Visitors to Peru's iconic Machu Picchu site had their trip briefly interrupted by protesters angry with the government for privatizing ticket sales at the Inca Citadel. Tour operators and residents closed shops in protest and blocked the tracks of a tourist train, compelling those on board to walk the remaining 3 kilometers to the entrance. The protesters are claiming to fight against the systematic privatizations of Machu Picchu as they felt that the ticketing company was contracted illegally. A local collective claims the company granted the contract for ticket sales. Joiners will make as much as $3.2 million per year in commissions. The Culture Ministry said the protest had not severely disrupted Thursday's visit. Machu Picchu, 130 kilometers from the city of Cusco, was built in the 15th century at an altitude of 2,500 meters on orders from the Inca ruler Pachacutec. It is considered a marvel of architecture and engineering as was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981. Tourism is key to Peru's economy, with the country attracting about 4.5 million visitors prior to the coronavirus pandemic in the year 2020. The number of daily access tickets to the Citadel were increased to 4,500 per day starting this month from an earlier maximum of 3,800. The French government is seeking ways to end protests by farmers blocking motorways and demonstrating across the country after a fuel tax rise ignited long-standing grievances. Newly installed Prime Minister Gabriel Attal summoned his economy, environment and agriculture ministers to confront his first crisis and decide on 8 measures to fend off a possible blockade of the capital. Agriculture Minister Mark Fresno's office said after the talks that Attal would make concrete proposals to aid farmers on Friday. Hundreds of tractors drove through Rennes and Nantes in the west of the country, blasting horns, brandishing mock gallows and setting off smoke bombs. Farmers say they are being squeezed by price battle between supermarkets and industrial buyers that is crushing their margins, and environmental rules on issues like living land fallow and pesticide use. The last straw for many was a government decision to phase out a tax break on diesel fuel for farm machinery by 2030. A new diesel tax rebate could be one of the government's forthcoming measures, while some lawmakers also want minimum prices introduced for farm produce. The powerful FNSEA union demanded immediate answers on pay, urgent aid for sectors worst hit by the crisis and, in the long term, a plan to reduce regulations. Up next, Malaysia bags 1 point after a draw against South Korea. That and more in our sports segment. Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, Harimau Malaya showed their stripes and almost put a dent on 2-time champion South Korea's reputation when they drew 3-3 in their final Group E match of the 2023 Asian Cup at Al Janoub Stadium last night. Midfielder Jeong Woo-young drew first blood for South Korea in the 21st minute. National goalkeeper Ahmad Shihan Hazmi amazed the crowd in attendance after denying several attempts by South Korean and kept the score 1-0 until the first half break. Into the second half, Malaysia fought back to equalise the scoreline through Muhammad Faisal Abdul Halim's brilliant finishing in the box. Malaysia then raced on to take the lead when Arif Aiman Muhammad Hanapi calmly converted a spot kick awarded to Malaysia. However, South Korea equalised with just 10 minutes of regulation time left through an own goal by goalkeeper Ahmad Shihan Hazmi Mohammed before taking the lead at 3-2 through a penalty by Tottenham Hotspur star Sun Heung-min in added time. Substitute and naturalised player Romel Morales emerged as the hero for Malaysia when he scored in the 15th minute of added time to earn Malaysia the draw. Although Malaysia ended the tournament with just 1 point in hand, the satisfaction of scoring 3 goals against one of Asia's giants was one of the underdogs' greatest achievement in their Asian Cup campaign.
I think our players deserve to win tonight.
Meanwhile, national head coach Kim Pan-gon expressed his thanks to the Malaysian government, Football Association of Malaysia (FAM), local football clubs and fans for their undying support to Harimau Malaya. The South Korea admitted that it was a very daunting task to motivate his men following their failure to qualify into the round of 16 after recording 2 consecutive losses in the campaign at the hand of Jordan and Bahrain. Last night's match was the third time Malaysia took on South Korea following their first meeting in the 1980s edition of Asian Cup. The last time the two sides met in competitive fixture was in 1989 World Cup qualifiers when Malaysia lost 3-0 to South Korea. In the meantime, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim congratulated the Harimau Malaya squad for giving South Korea a run for their money. Through a brief post on X, Anwar thanked the national football team on behalf of all Malaysians and urged the squad to continue to strive and not give up. Meanwhile, Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh described the result as the biggest gift to Harimau Malaya's fans. She also said that Harimau Malaya make a mark on the Asian stage and that they will be back in the next Asian Cup. For Deputy Adam Adli Abdul Halim, this is not the end of the road for Malaysia.
Dan di peringkat KBS sendiri kita cuba untuk adakan kerjasama dengan semua persatuan dan juga pemegang taruh dalam bola sepak ini untuk kita improve dari sudut contohnya infrastruktur dan sebagainya. Selebihnya saya yakin dengan adanya kerjasama yang lebih baik, tumpuan terhadap kualiti permainan dan strategi serta transfer of knowledge yang lebih baik antara semua pihak yang terlibat dalam sukan bola sepak, saya yakin kita dapat lihat dari masa ke semasa bigger improvement for our national football.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia topped Group F of the Asian Cup despite being held to a scoreless draw by Thailand in their final group stage match. Roared on by hordes of their fans at Education City Stadium, one of the venues for the 2022 World Cup, they were held 0-0 by Thailand to top the group in a lively draw that clocked up 4 disallowed goals. Saudi Arabia had a penalty taken by Abdullah Radif, saved in the first half, and though they dominated the game, with Thailand failing to have a shot on target, they were held in a result which sent both teams through. The Saudis had several chances, thwarted by Thailand keeper Saranon Anuin, who had a handful of spectacular saves in addition to the saved penalty. Thailand will take on Uzbekistan in the next round, while Saudi Arabia will face South Korea. On to hockey, the national women's five-a-side hockey team confirmed their place in the quarterfinals of the Hockey 5F's World Cup 2024 after drawing 4-4 with Fiji in their final Group A match in Muscat, Oman yesterday. In the match against Fiji at the Hockey Oman venue, Oman opened the account through Laura Buka Lili before Dian Nur Shakira Najwa Al-Waqda Nazri equalised in the 15th minute. In the second quarter, Fiji started the game in aggressive fashion as they scored back-to-back goals from Melba Nautu and Tiara Duta at 18th and 20th minute. It was not long before Malaysia once again equalised through Shakira Najwa and Elia Shahira Ilyas. In just 2 minutes, Malaysia took the lead when Khairunisa Muhammad Zanili scored the 4th goal for Malaysia. However, the lead was not for long as Lala Rabatu replied for Fiji. The stalemate sees Malaysia finish second in the group with 4 points, the same as Fiji, who end up third with an inferior goal difference, thus allowing Malaysia to set up a quarter-final date against South Africa today. Moving on to tennis, Aryna Sabalenka took a big step towards retaining her Australian Open crown by beating American fourth seed Coco Gauff 7-6, 6-4 in a thriller on Thursday to reach the final where she will meet China's Zhang Qinwen. In a rematch of the US Open final in September, the two reigning hard-court Grand Slam champions made contrasting starts as Belarusian Sabalenka fired an ace and rev up her forehand to hold before pouncing on two double faults by Gauff to break. But what followed was an intense contest between two players hoping to forge ahead and win their second Grand Slam title. It was Sabalenka who held firm to become the first player since Serena Williams in 2016 and 2017 to make back-to-back Melbourne finals. The pair were locked together until 4-4 in the second set as Sabalenka countered Gauff's speed with power, and the 25-year-old second seed edged ahead with a decisive break when the teenager hit a shot long before sealing victory with two massive serves. Sabalenka will set her sights on becoming the first woman to win consecutive Australian Open titles since compatriot Victoria Azarenka in 2012 and 2013. Meanwhile, Zhang ended the fairy tale run of qualifier Diana Yastremska at the Australian Open with 6-4, 6-4 victory to reach her first Grand Slam final. The points were short and sharp for most of the battle and followed the same pattern in both sets, with the two swapping breaks early on and then 12 seed Zhang snaring the extra break in the seventh game both times. Zhang, who has rained down more aces by far than any other woman at Melbourne Park in her journey to the final, is bidding to match her hero Lina, who became the first Chinese Grand Slam winner by taking the Australian Open crown 10 years ago. But after beating a string of lower-ranked players to reach the final, the 21-year-old will now face a formidable opponent in Belarusian second seed Sabalenka, who has not lost a set in the past 2 weeks. In motorsports, Toyota Alfin Evans lead the season-opening Monte Carlo rally after getting his tyre strategy right and winning the first two stages on Thursday. Team leader in the absence of World Rally champion Kael Rovanpera, who's taking a break from full-time racing, the Welshman was first on the road and ended the night 15.1 seconds clear of Hyundai's Thierry Neuville. 8-time world champion Sebastian Ogier, chasing a record 10th Monte win, was third for Toyota and 21.6 seconds of the pace over the unusually ice and snow-free asphalt roads in the French Alps. Hyundai's Art Tana was in fourth place on his return to the team after a year at M Sport Ford, 1.2 adrift of Ogier despite a sticking throttle. Friday's first full leg features 3 stages in the morning that are repeated in the afternoon and evening. Ukraine's most celebrated footballer Andriy Shevchenko was elected president of the country's Football Association UAF on Thursday, pledging to develop the sport amid the Russian invasion. Shevchenko, who won the Champions League with AC Milan in the year 2003 and is Ukraine's top goal scorer, has been a staunch opponent of Russia's war. He regularly spoke out against Moscow's action and using his profile to help raise funds for victims and refugees. The 47-year-old told a press conference in Kiev he would strive to advance the game in the very difficult conditions of the full-scale war. The former Chelsea, AC Milan and Dynamo Kiev striker also pledged to stamp out corruption at the body following a graft scandal that saw his predecessor arrested on fraud charges. The 2004 Ballon d'Or winner was head coach of Ukraine from 2016 to 2021, leading them to the Euro 2020 quarterfinals where they lost to England. Football in Ukraine has not escaped the effects of war. The season was halted when Russia invaded and games have been shifted to the safer western part of the country. The national team have been forced to play home games in neighbouring Poland. Ukraine are currently in the playoff for Euro 2024 qualification. Charles Leclerc committed his future to Ferrari on Thursday after signing a contract renewal with the Italian Formula One outfit. Ferrari did not specify the length of Leclerc's new deal, merely saying that it took him beyond the 2024 season when his current contract expires. In their Italian statement, the Scuderia said that Leclerc, who finished 5th last season and way behind world champion Max Verstappen, would be staying on for the coming seasons. Leclerc, 26, had been driving for Ferrari's F1 team since the year 2019, 1 year after making his debut in the Premier Racing Championship with Sauber. The Monegasque had 3 years previously been at the Ferrari Driver Academy before winning the F2 Championship in the year 2017. Since joining the Scuderia, Leclerc has won 5 Grand Prix, claimed 30 podium finishes and started on pole position 23 times. But he has failed to put up a proper challenge for the world title as Verstappen and Red Bull snatched dominance of the sport from 7-time champions Lewis Hamilton in the year 2021. The closest Leclerc has come to the Drivers' Championship was in 2022 when he finished second behind Verstappen. He handed that season 146 points of the pace, and last season the gap was even larger, a whopping 369 points separating Leclerc from the Dutchman.
Isu-isu sukan tempatan di pelbagai arena, pelbagai gelanggang. Pencapaian dan kontroversi akan dikupas dan dibincangkan dalam Planet Sukan setiap Ahad 10 malam di TV1 dan saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstrima langsung di RTM Klik.
And that's all from us this afternoon. In our top story today, Hamas ready to abide ceasefire ruling by ICJ if Israel does the same. Do join us again on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM tonight at 8:30 p.m. for more news. I'm SAHIH from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.